We're good to go.
Sounds great, man.
So how you doing, Zach?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, to first start off, I want to thank you for being my first guest at Turning on the Mic with Javi. It's an honor. Thank you so much.
You
Uh,
are absolutely welcome. It is my pleasure. Thank you for thinking of me and thank you for taking an interest in my story. And first of all, congratulations on starting the podcast. There's a lot of work that goes in behind it, and it takes a lot of courage and initiative and enthusiasm to get all of that set up and to hit the ground running. And I'm grateful that I am your first guest. So, congratulations to you.
thank you so much. So I just want to start off how you decided to become a WWE wrestler or just professional wrestler. What made you start off as that?
Well, it really kind of goes back to my childhood. I didn't have the greatest childhood growing up. My dad took off when I was 4 years old. And, one of my first memories as a kid was watching wrestling on Saturday mornings, WWF Superstars, more specifically on Saturday mornings with my dad as a very, very young child. I mean, he took off when I was 4 years old. He had his problems with drug addiction and alcoholism, and he wasn't able to be the father that I needed and the husband to my mom that she needed. And so that had a huge impact on my life as a kid, the fact that he was no longer there. And then when I was 8 years old, I got diagnosed with cancer, um, more specifically osteosarcoma, which is a rare form of bone cancer in my left leg. And so, in order to save my life, they had to completely amputate my leg. And in doing so, they saved my life. But at the end of the day, I had to go back to school and kind of reintegrate myself into life, missing a leg. And I felt awkward and I felt insecure and I was sick and I didn't really feel like I quite fit in. And what helped me through that, all of that, was my ability to escape into the magic of professional wrestling. When I watched WWF wrestling as a child, I didn't feel the pain of not having my dad. I didn't feel the pain of not having my leg. I didn't feel the pain of not really fitting in with the rest of the kids at school. And so for me, it was a form of escape that turned into a passion, which turned into an obsession. And by the time I was 16, I knew exactly what I wanted to be when I grew up, and that was to be a professional wrestler. I had no idea that I would be able to make it to WWE. I just knew that I had to get into the wrestling ring. So for me, the outcome wasn't as important as actually doing the action, which was becoming a professional wrestler. And when I was 18 years old, I became the world's first one-legged professional wrestler, thanks to my drive and my passion for wrestling, but also thanks to my athletic ability and my balance and um, my desire to perform. I guess in front of a crowd, and so all of that mixed together in a nice crock pot for professional wrestling. But and at 19, I became the world's first one-legged WWE superstar. So it happened very quickly at a very young age, and I was able to live out my dream um, very very early on.
So recently, well, not recently, but I know a while ago, I was probably maybe 13 or 14. I was on YouTube one day, and since I've been watching WWE since I was 7 years old, the first match I can ever think of was John Cena versus Umaga versus the Great Khali.
Yeah.
That was the first match I can ever I can just think of. So
What was that? That must have been 2005 or something.
that was I don't know. I think that was 2007. I was one of the triple
Well,
threat match
oh
that was
yeah.
happening on
Yep.
Monday Night Raw.
Yep.
So recently, my freshman year of high school, I was watching WWE on the YouTube channel, and one video popped up on my suggested list, and it was a rivalry between you and Brock Lesnar. Now, I just want to get into this. What was your reaction when you had this feud with Brock Lesnar?
Uh, I, honestly, I was really excited. I was really excited, and that may sound weird considering the level of danger involved wrestling Brock Lesnar. Um, but you have to understand that Brock was like, and he still is, one of the top guys in the company.
That is true.
And so when you're in WWE, the goal is to work with and to be one of the top guys in the company. And how do you do that? Well, you have to kind of be in the mix with the top guys. And so I knew it was going to be pretty historic, just in terms of the story, because you have Brock Lesnar, who at the time probably weighed about, I don't know, 275, 280, legit. I mean, he's a little bit smaller now than he was back in '03, but he was just young and hungry, and he was just an animal, And then I was, 20 years old, and I weighed about 140 pounds. And so I just knew, and a lot of my favorite matches as kid, when I was a kid, would be like the huge guy versus the small guy.
Yeah.
That's why I really loved Rey Mysterio. And when he was in WCW in the 90s, when he would go against guys like Kevin Nash and guys like Scott Hall and just these really big guys, I always loved that David versus Goliath kind of story, that big versus small. And so to me, to be able to be in the ring with Brock was just kind of a continuation of what I was a fan of. And we meshed really well because he was really good at kicking butt, and I was really good at getting my butt kicked. So I knew that we were going to come together and put on some pretty memorable matches in terms of our feud. And so I was excited. And, I mean, I'm 35 years old now. I wouldn't want to wrestle Brock Lesnar right now. But when you're 20 years old, it's kind of a different story because you're young, nothing hurts. You're full of adrenaline and
You just want,
testosterone,
you just
and you
want to
just want to
be
get
that
out there
type.
and perform.
You want to be that type
Um,
of
and,
person.
and so wrestling Brock was kind of like, for me, the foundation of that was a lot of excitement.
Um, well, so watching that video, I mean, I was just like in shock of what he did to you during that match. I'm just like, this guy is crazy. What he's doing to him. And seeing your mom, in the crowd, she's like in shock. But it to me, it shows charisma. It shows that you are doing this because you have a vision. You want to do anything you can just to become that top guy in WWE. Now, my other question to you is, like, how was Brock Lesnar? Like, was he the good guy backstage? Like, did you guys have good conversations back then?
Yeah, Brock was a great dude. I got along with Brock. Brock was a guy who was all about the business. He clocks in, goes to work, clocks out, does what he wants to do. His personality type, a lot of wrestlers backstage didn't get along with Brock because um, he didn't have this stereotypical like wrestling personality, which is like 24/7. You eat, sleep, and breathe the business. And Brock Lesnar didn't have that. He liked to do his own thing. He liked his alone time. He liked to get up early, work out. He liked to go hunting and fishing and just kind of off by himself. And that's just kind of what his personality was. And for me, I respected that, and I got that, and I understood that. And so me and him just we got along great. And I think he was grateful for me because having that feud really helped him kind of develop and evolve his character in front of the WWE universe, in front of the crowd. And so, me giving my body essentially to him to allow him to, move up the ladder, I think he was always grateful for that. But no, to me, Brock was always a gentleman, and he's a great dude. And I always got along with him backstage.
Um, so during your time in WWE, uh, how did you feel about taking on like having matches with the chairman Vince McMahon? having a match with John Cena and Matt Hardy, and etc., including the late great Roddy Piper. Oh, let's not forget Mr. America Hulk Hogan. That's another one right there. How did you
Right.
how did you feel having a match with your boss?
Okay. Well, have if you ever get a chance to get paid to punch a billionaire in his face as hard as you can, I suggest you take him up on that offer because it's a whole lot of fun. Like, it was awesome. My debut segment in WWE was with Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan. That's just it's mind blowing. It's surreal. It feels like it was a whole different. Like it kind of feels like a dream. To be honest with you, and in the moment, it was really hard to appreciate it because I was just so overwhelmed by like the pressure and the lights and the crowd and the cameras and like being able to be in the same building, let alone work with these guys, but to be in the same building as my heroes was just incredible. I mean, it put my brain on overload. Um, but looking back, I have such an appreciation and a sense of gratitude for the opportunities to wrestle with these guys, man. I mean, they're not only wrestling icons, I mean, they're cultural icons. Everyone knows Vince McMahon,
Of course.
Roddy Piper, Hulk Hogan, Brock Lesnar, John Cena. I mean, everyone knows these guys. And so to be able to share a little time and space with them, and not only that, but to work with them in the same ring at the same time was absolutely incredible, man.
So let me just ask you a quick question here. Do you still watch Monday Night Raw, SmackDown Live? Do you watch NXT?
No, not. I still follow. No, to answer your question, short answer, no, I don't.
Okay.
Simply because I have so many other commitments, and I have kids, and I have a wife, and I have other things that kind of need my attention and priority. And so it's hard to dedicate 3 hours on a Monday night every single week to watch that. I'll watch the big pay per views like a WrestleMania or a Royal Rumble or a SummerSlam if I can, but I do follow the business uh, through social media and Twitter and my interactions with the guys that still work there, and through my relationships and friendships like that. But I don't have my finger on the pulse in terms of watching it every single week.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know what's going on.
Um, so going back to your other matches as well, you had a match with Matt Hardy. What do you think about Matt Hardy? Like, how do you enjoy fighting with him? Do you enjoy that kind of matches as well?
Yes, Matt. We didn't get along in terms of our personalities very
Yes.
much or very well when we were in WWE together. But Matt was the guy that I learned the most from. He was the guy that I wrestled the most when I was in WWE, and he was the guy who taught me the most with respect to the actual in ring work, the moves and the bumps and why to do what move when and where and how that impacts the psychology of the crowd through their eyes and what makes a good match and what makes a good match great and what makes a great match one of the best and all of that. Like that, I learned most of the in-ring stuff, the important in-ring stuff from Matt Hardy. And then over the years after he left WWE and I left WWE, our paths crossed again, and all of a sudden we were like BFF. Like we ran into each other, and it was like I don't know, man. I attribute that to a lot of maturity that happens. And now and now we're like really good friends. Um, but uh, but yeah, at the time we really didn't get along too well. But now we're good friends, and he's the guy who I think, in terms of the actual in ring product that fans see every week, he's the guy that helped me out the most.
Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, the Hardy Boys, they inspired a lot of fans. They inspired a lot of kids like me. Well, me, I'm a young man now, but when I used to watch when I was, 8 or 9 years old, those were the guys I enjoyed watching because of the athleticism that they had. Like they had so much adrenaline that they just didn't want to stop. Now, seeing Matt Hardy leave WWE was kind of shocking. I was kind of upset about that. So I've been watching his path and other promotions as well. He joined Ring of Honor. He went down to TNA. Um, Watching him in TNA, I saw he did this gimmick, the Broken Hardy. That at first I was like, what is he doing? What kind of gimmick is this? Where is this gonna lead him to? But now with that gimmick, have you seen how crazy the fans has been going just for the chant of delete? Have you been noticing that?
Oh yeah, man. Matt is, and to get back to your point, Matt was one of the Hardy Boys just in general were one of my big inspirations too when I was a kid. Before I got into the business, and so for the past 20 years, I mean, Matt has such a mind, for like built specifically for professional wrestling. He's been able to reinvent himself 7 or 8 times with completely different characters, and the next one is better than the previous one every single time. So you have to respect that,
Yes.
and you have to respect his drive and his passion and his enthusiasm for keeping himself fresh and keeping his act fresh and always being able to connect with the crowd and never becoming stale. Matt has always had his finger on the pulse of that, in terms of like how the crowd reacts to what and why. And that's why I say he's the guy who helped me the most when I was there in 2003, 2004. He's awesome.
My the first person, well, the first wrestler I always have been dying to meet was Matt Hardy. It still is. I'm still on the verge of trying to become myself a WWE superstar. I just hope maybe one day we can cross paths together and hopefully he can help me out and I can tell him the amount of like love I had for him and how much I love his new gimmick with the broken slash woken gimmick. That is just like what he did. That was awesome. Like in the beginning, at first I was like, "Whoa, I don't know what's going on here," but seeing the whole fans connect to him with all the fans screaming out "delete, delete," obsolete with Jeff Hardy, Brother Nero. Matt Hardy is the guy that I really want to be trained by, because that guy is awesome. He's always been the top guy. To me, he will be the top guy. And I hope maybe one day we can just cross paths and he can inspire me more on becoming a WWE superstar. Well, more importantly, become the WWE champions. you know, it's yeah. So you know, hearing you having matches with these type of guys, the big guys, John Cena, Matt Hardy, it inspires me a lot because a guy wasn't really that was really taught down, not being there with his father and stuff like that. It shows a lot to me that people still have dreams and they fight for it. Now,
That's it.
I still, I wanted to know, what was your reaction like? How did you feel after you finished with WWE? Like, what happened?
Oh man, I was devastated, dude. I mean, you gotta understand, like that was my dream job, and then for them to sit me down in the office and tell me, they no longer needed or wanted my services, completely broke my heart and destroyed me because that's all I ever wanted to do. And they released me because of personality conflicts between me and the other superstars and backstage. And the long and end of it was I wasn't emotionally mature enough to handle that spotlight. And I up until that point, I hadn't worked hard enough to be able to appreciate the gift that was being handed to me. And I was immature and I was young and it was too much too soon. It's happened before and it'll happen again to the next young guy, and you'll see that in all stages of entertainment. But that's just the fact that I was hard to get along with, and I also carried around a lot of that emotional baggage that I had from childhood. uh, because in my head, I still felt like that kind of insecure kid who got picked last for the basketball team every year. And that's just kind of how I reacted to life. And, that's no way to go through life. It's just to have that victim mentality or that idea or that thought that everyone's out to get me. And life isn't fair and all of that. And that's kind of the mentality that I had at the time. And it didn't serve me well. In fact, it was very detrimental to my professional career and affected a lot of my relationships on a personal level as well. So that to me turned out to be a great blessing because of the lessons learned from that, and because of what happened to my life after I left WWE. But the fact was, I wasn't ready to receive that gift at that time.
So after you got released from WWE, what else did you do? Did you join any indie promotions? Did you do anything else after that?
Yeah, I worked for. I've been blessed to work for every single major wrestling promotion all over the world, whether it's TNA or Ring of Honor, All Japan, in Germany and Mexico. I've been afforded opportunities to work everywhere, and I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful that I got to see the world, and I continue to see the world on somebody else's dime. And I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and to do what I love to do, and be able to travel with my friends and do it with my friends. It's been an amazing experience. Now I've been doing it for 16 years, and my wrestling career is slowing down because honestly, it doesn't. There's not much left for me to do in wrestling. I've done everything. And I found new passions and I found new avenues to explore creatively. And I do that now through youth empowerment and youth engagement. So now I travel the country and I get to work with kids on a weekly basis from all sorts of backgrounds, and I get to share my story, and I get to talk about wrestling, and I get to talk about being on American Ninja Warrior, and I get to talk about growing up without a dad. More importantly, I'm able to make a bigger impact sharing my story through youth engagement than I am through professional wrestling. So it's like it's the same thing in my head, wrestling and speaking and facilitating with and working with kids. All that is an extension for me to share my story and plant seeds of hope and inspiration. And whether it's on in the wrestling ring or on a stage at a school auditorium or working with parents or teachers, to me it's all the same thing. And that is I get to share my story, plant seeds of inspiration, and provide a little bit of hope for somebody who needs to hear my story, And so for that, it's kind of been like a natural evolution from wrestling to speaking and facilitating, and to me, it scratches that same itch that I had when I was 17 and I stepped into a wrestling ring for the first time.
Wow. Wow. Going back to what you said about American Ninja Warrior, how was that? Like, what was your reaction when you decided to be an American Ninja Warrior?
Well, it was awesome because I didn't really expect to be on American Ninja Warrior, just like everything else in my life. I didn't expect to be a WWE superstar. I didn't expect to be an inspirational speaker. I just the greater lesson here is you put yourself out there, you build up enough courage to take your shot, and then whatever opportunities present themselves, the answer is always yes. And I'm not. Uh, I have no stake in the outcomes of things, win, lose, or draw. The important part for me is that I take advantage of the opportunities. I say yes, and doors continue to open for me. And one of those doors was to be on American Ninja Warrior and compete. And so when I got the call that I was going to compete, I had about 6 weeks to train. And at that point, it's like, all right, we got 6 weeks. Everyone else who's competing, they have 2 legs, and they've been training year round for multiple years. It's like, all right, well, I have one leg and I have 6 weeks to train. It's very like specific and specialized training for that competition, and it's like, all right, well, what do I have? And let's work with what I got. Cool. So I reached out. I asked for help. I got a coach. I trained, three days a week, 1-on-1 with the coach, and my family stepped up and they were able to like take care of like babysitting for me, and they allowed me to that time and space to train for it. And so that was my only commitment, was to be able to get myself as ready as I could for the show. In terms of winning or being on TV or getting lots of eyeballs on my story or me, that's all secondary. I can't really plan on that. All I can do is train for it. And so I trained my butt off, man, and I had a good run, and a lot of people saw it and they were inspired, and it changed a lot of perceptions of what's possible and what's not possible. And at the end of the day, man, that's a huge victory. That's an amazing victory. Uh, and I feel grateful that I was given the platform, and that I believe God worked through me to carry His message. Whether it's an American Ninja Warrior or a wrestling ring or a school auditorium, I'm just there to carry a message. And all of my victories, they're not my victories. They're my team's victories. They're the people around me who supported me and believe in me and continue to do so. People that have seen something in me when at times I didn't even see it in myself. And so I must honor their commitment and their investment on me, by doing the things I need to do on a daily basis. And so for me, Ninja Warrior was just kind of an extension of that. And I consider it a huge victory. And it's a highlight. It's on the highlight reel of my life for sure.
I was I remember I was watching that episode not too long ago. I saw that and I was like, I was watching. I was like, whoa, that's Zach Gowen? Is that the Zach Gowen? No, it can't be. And I was just rooting for you. I was cheering for you because I knew you had this. You're seeing your path from WWE and then doing indie promotions, and then seeing you on American Ninja Warrior was like, this guy is not stopping. This guy is, and he's unstoppable. There's nothing that can stop you. So from here, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Future Project. Could have done it without them. Um, I recently heard that you also tried out to be a Future Project member. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did, man. And Lamar, right?
Yes,
That's how
Lamar.
all of this happened.
Oh my God, Lamar is the guy. Lamar is the man that I met my freshman year of high school. He helped me out through a lot. Um,
Wow.
I remember, so my freshman year, my sister got me involved. Shout out to my sister Ashley. Um, she got me involved in this program called the Future Project, and I'm just like, what am I gonna do with this? Like, what's gonna help me achieve this? And she was telling me, hey, you never know, something can happen with this. This project can help you out with your future. So I was like, okay, I'll try it out. So around August of 2014, I was doing some projects with Lamar. She knew Lamar for a while already. And from there on, I just gotten close to Lamar. And I remember having conversations with him after class, during class about WWE. I never knew that he enjoyed wrestling as much as I did. And then recently, I just graduated high school. Um, I was afraid to achieve my actual passion when I was in the Future Project. I've been having little motivation speakers coming in to my school and talked about how they achieved their passion, and I was always afraid to tell mine because I didn't want people to know that I wanted to become a wrestler because people see that as me like, oh, you? I don't think you can make it. I was always afraid
Yeah.
of
So
telling
laugh
people
at
that.
you.
Yeah, so
I've been laughed at my whole life, man.
yeah, so
I
like
get it.
so I was like, I don't really want to share this out. I don't want to tell people my side of the story of what I want to be when I grow up because they're just probably gonna laugh at me. But I don't know. Something hit me in the last year of high school. I've been watching wrestling way much more, and I just said, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna work my butt off to become a WWE wrestler. I want to make it.
Yeah.
I want to make my family proud. Something I want to do. And man, when was it? It was like ending of last month or August. I came to the Future Project headquarters, saw Lamar, and I told Lamar, I was like, "Hey, I got a proposal for you." And he comes up to me, he's like, "What is it?" I said, I wanna do a podcast." A podcast? Podcast for what? Podcast for wrestling. Now, I wanted to start out this podcast something first so I can at least get some advices, inspiration, good quotes from people that are just involved with wrestling, just like you. I told him, I was like, I want to start this off because I want, at the end of the day, I want to become a WWE wrestler, and I know this will help me out. I know getting getting people to come in to speak with me and talk about the advices that they can give me, it could help me out a lot, and I'm going to
Mhm.
do it. And I told him nothing is not going to stop me. Um, so he told me, he said, that's dope. I know this guy. His name is Zach Gowen, and I looked at him with this serious face. I said, "So you're telling me, out of my 4 years of high school, that you known a former WWE wrestler, and you never told me about this? You're telling me this now?" And he just started laughing. He's like, "Yeah, man, me and him, we go way back. Hopefully he can be your first guest." And look where we are now. You're my first guest,
Yeah, man.
and I thank
Well,
Lamar.
congratulations, dude. Honestly, you did a really, really great job. Um, I do a lot of interviews, and I get a lot of requests for interviews for podcasts,
Yes.
and I turn a lot of them down because a lot of them are just kind of what they do is it's lazy in a way, and the last thing you want to be in life is lazy. Like that's the
Oh
you
man.
want to be doing something somewhere at some time, like the putting work in doing something. Um, one of my favorite quotes is the history books and the libraries are filled with people who are called crazy by those who are lazy. Lazy people laugh at people. Lazy people say you can't do this. Lazy people call you crazy. Lazy people say that it's impossible. I don't want to be one of those people. I don't want my kids to be one of those people. I'd rather them be crazy than lazy. 1,000%. And so, but what a lot of these podcasters do is they'll open up my Wikipedia page and they'll like read it word for word and ask me questions along the way. Like, oh, what was it like wrestling Nunzio? Oh, what was it like wrestling Shannon Moore? Oh, what was it? And there's no like depth to it, and there's no research, and there's no work put into it. And so when that happens, I'd rather not do it because if they don't care enough to put the work and research in, I'm not going to donate my time in terms of towards them to help their podcast out. And so you were obviously well prepared, and you asked really good questions, and you had really good follow ups to my answers. And you're going to be fine. I would suggest to keep doing it over and over and over again. How do you get better at anything? You got to put the reps in. How do you get bigger muscles? You got to put the weight on, and you got to get the reps out. you know
Yeah.
it's that same mentality that you need to have towards podcasting or towards wrestling or towards anything in life. But Javi, you did a great job, and it's an honor and it's a pleasure, man. Thank you for finding some entertainment and inspiration in my story, and I'm glad you followed it. And congratulations on pursuing this new endeavor, man. Keep doing it.
Well,
Keep doing it.
I
And here's the thing: keep doing it even when you don't want to do it anymore. That'll be the difference between the boys and the men.
yes.
When you keep doing it, when after you made the commitment and you don't feel like getting up early or you don't feel like staying up late and doing research, that's when that separates the boys from the men. The people who are successful and happy versus the people who aren't.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you again. I never thought in my 18 years of living, I never expected to be actually having, a one-on-one talk with a former WWE superstar. I never expected this my whole life. I just want to thank you for that, making my dream come true. Um, I want to end it off with one more question. I want
But
to ask you, what advices would you have? Like, what kind of advice would you give someone who is who's trying so hard to be in WWE or just professional wrestling?
And professional wrestling.
Yes.
Uh Number one advice I can give is to find a reputable wrestling school. Um, you may have to travel a little bit to find a good one,
Mm-hmm.
and then once you find a good wrestling school, get reliable transportation. Because once you graduate from the wrestling school, you're going to have to hit the road, and you're going to want a good group of guys with you. So find a good group of guys to travel with. Work as much as possible. Be prepared to lose money your first 4 or 5 years of wrestling. But think of it not as losing money, but think of it as an investment towards your future. And then work as much as possible and find as many different crowds as possible, as many different wrestlers as possible. Build connections, build relationships, and from there you can climb the ladder. That makes it a lot easier.
Well, once again, thank you so much, Zach. Thank you guys for tuning on with Javi, turning on the mic with Javi, whatever you guys want to call it. I don't care. It doesn't really matter to me because I'm going to make sure this podcast is going to be the top podcast of all time.
Let's go. Top of all time. Let's go.
Thank you, Zach.
I'd call it heating up the mic with Javi.
Heating up the mic with Javi. That is
yeah, because you're spitting hot fire right now. So the mics are hot. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, once again, I can't stop saying thank you. Hopefully we can have another one-on-one talk. Once again, just thank you so much.
My door is always open, Javi. Thanks, man, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right.